All right, how are you doing? Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for tuning in to Chomping at the Bit. So, I'm sure you've been paying attention to the news cycle past couple of days where, Deshaun Watson's been back in the news. So, last week we learned that Judge Sue Robinson awarded a suspension of 6 games to Deshaun Watson. A lot of the football world thought it was a little bit light and was wondering what the league was going to do about it. And we learned right away, Roger Goodell came out and said that no, the league is going to appeal it because Roger Goodell wants a longer sentence. I believe Goodell wanted a full season with Watson having to apply for reinstatement after the season was over. Kind of the Josh Gordon thing. Of course, there's 2 different things as Josh Gordon was dealing with. I believe it was like alcohol and other things like that. But we saw several times Josh Gordon would get in trouble. He'd miss the season, apply for reinstatement, and then Goodell would either let him back in or not, and so on and so on. So I think Goodell was kind of trying to go with that type of structure for Deshaun Watson. Now, if you don't remember what happened, long story short, actually I'll get more into some of the details like that as we get into it. But mainly what I'm talking about is there was an agreement between the league, Roger Goodell, and the Players Association on a set number of games for Deshaun Watson. So we'll talk about that. Let you know where I'm coming from with it, whether I thought 6 was enough, if the new number is enough, or if they should have gone even further. And of course, at the end, you can let me know what you think as well. And so we know that the NFL season is coming up, and expect to hear a lot more, especially coming up to the season. A lot more like season preview type episodes before we get to the regular season. But with that, I think we should go ahead, get into this, talk about Deshaun Watson, because it's very interesting, especially with it being Deshaun Watson, because for his career, he's been basically a model citizen in the NFL. You didn't hear a lot of bad press about him. He's a great young quarterback in the league, and especially for black fans, seeing a black quarterback that was succeeding, although the team's success wasn't really there past few years because the Texans weren't a great team. But Deshaun Watson was an upper echelon quarterback in the league. So he was a guy that the Texans fan base loved because, yes, the team struggled, but he was the star player, and he was a player that was recognized around the league. So for the narrative about him to change from that to, as Roger Goodell called him, a predator, and called him that because, once again, if you don't remember the story, just shorthand what happened. Learned that Watson likes to get massages, I guess, from people outside of the team facility, and there was like 20 something alleged cases of him being inappropriate, not so happy endings with, masseuses coming out talking about favors he wanted and all that kind of stuff that kind of crossed the line. So for a little over a year now, we have been waiting to see the resolution to all this, because last season, while all this was kind of going on in the background of the NFL season, where details were kind of being sorted out and all that, Deshaun Watson never played. The Texans sat him off to the side. I believe Deshaun Watson came out and said he wanted to leave Houston anyway. So, there was a cloud over the team, the Texans last season, where you had a new coach that was there, and the organization had made it very clear they were moving on from Deshaun Watson, assuming because of the allegations and all that. And then you had the star player and Deshaun Watson wanting out, but the team not obliging. So the offseason comes and he finds himself out in Cleveland, which then created a mini circus there because they had Baker Mayfield. So they moved Baker Mayfield out, and it looks like Deshaun Watson is going to be the guy. Browns fans, of course, we're excited by this because Deshaun Watson is an upgrade over Baker Mayfield. But looming in the background of all this was what's going to happen with all these allegations. So we got to see the new process, which was agreed upon with the Players Association in terms of disciplinary measures in the NFL, because up until this point, suspensions in the NFL have been like throwing darts at a dartboard. You had no idea, what was like the deciding factor in how many games people got, because suspensions were all over the place. Something that seemed light in one case would get a larger set of games than something that seemed more major in other cases. So hopefully, we were wondering with the new procedure and everything, maybe suspensions would start making more sense. There'd be some guidelines in terms of, hey, you do this, expect to get this number of games. So they go through the process. They had a judge, I believe Sue Robinson, who looked into everything. She's the one who set down the 6-game suspension in the beginning, and it was clear that Watson and his camp were okay with that, because in terms of 20 plus allegations against you, 6 games seemed very light. And if that's all he was going to serve, fine. I mean, recently I've been hearing there's people around the NFL who thought he wasn't going to get any games at all, which if that had happened, I think that would have been the biggest crime in all of this, and would have set up a season with, I think, some baggage in terms of, I could have already seen it where if he was playing from day one, you would probably have seen fans outside of stadiums voicing their opinion about it, to be honest with you. And when you're looking at a case of a player and the allegations are towards, especially women and the treatment of them, I think that could have been a big deal and a major storyline throughout the season. We know that the NFL doesn't really want that. They want the focus to be on the field, stuff like that. The secondary stuff off the field, they'd rather see that taken care of either before the season or after the season. So it's like I said, Goodell and the league appeal it, and then once we found out that Goodell wanted a suspension of the whole season, the Players Association basically said, well, if you fight for that, we'll appeal that right away. So now it was going to be the fight of whether 6 games is going to stick or the NFL was going to get what they wanted, which led to, I guess what, at this point, was that Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday? No, Wednesday, yeah. We got the breaking news that the Players Association and the league settled on 11 games. So the league, well, Goodell didn't get his full season, but it's still more than the 6 games. So once I saw that, the first thing I asked myself was, is that enough? And to be honest with you, I thought the 6 games was a joke. And if he had gotten no games, that would, like I said, that would have been criminal. I was on board for Goodell's side of it being a whole season. If it turned out to be a whole season, I wouldn't have been mad about it. You know, like I said, just because of what was alleged and like how over the top all that was, I would have been fine with it. So 11 games. First thoughts, I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that. Then they have the $5 million fine on top of it. Okay, that's, yeah. And I know that some fans wanted more. I think there was a growing sentiment amongst fans that a full season seemed right. Now, do you want to, I guess, play devil's advocate in all this? Technically, by him not playing last season, he missed all of last season. So now you're getting an official 11-game suspension this year. You could technically look at it as 28 games of being suspended. Now, of course, nobody's going to look at it that way. But by the time Deshaun Watson comes back in Week 13, he wouldn't have thrown a pass in a meaningful game in so long that I don't know what Cleveland's going to get when he takes his position as starting quarterback in Week 13 this season. And looking at their schedule, because I just had to know what game that would have been. Oddly enough, the first game back for Deshaun Watson would be against the Houston Texans, his former team. Now, coincidence? Maybe. But I find it very ironic that his first game back is going to be against Houston. And if you look at the very first game for Cleveland, so let's say Deshaun Watson didn't get a suspension at all and was allowed to play the first game of the season. The first game of the season is against Carolina, so it would have been Watson versus Mayfield in the Baker Mayfield revenge game now that he's in Carolina. So, funny how it just set up that way. But now, yes, Deshaun Watson's first game is going to be against the Houston Texans, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to be interested to see what that looks like. And, the first preseason game Deshaun Watson played in, which I thought was a bad move on Cleveland's part, because even at that point you knew the suspension was 6 games. Why have him play in the first preseason game? It kind of made it a bit of a sideshow, I guess, but I think Cleveland just wanted to kind of see where he was at after not playing all of last season. And it was a rough start for him, but that was understandable after not playing so long. So now, take that and basically because what do they have? 2 or 3 more preseason games, and then his 11-game suspension. So between the preseason couple of throws he made, you're looking at like 13 weeks between him throwing another pass in a game. And if he was rusty in the little bit of action he's on the preseason, now to try to jump in the last few games of a season and play, there's going to be definitely some rust there again. And looking at their schedule, I mean, Cleveland's probably not going to be any playoff race this season since Watson's going to be out so many games. And the games he's going to miss, there's some tough divisional games during that stretch, as well as other games that are tough as well. So I'm looking at it, and I think with Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback, he's a serviceable backup, veteran, all that, but he's not Deshaun Watson. So I could see them being like 3-8 or something by the time Watson comes back. And then those 6 games he plays, best case scenario, they go 3-3. So the Browns could be a 6-7 win team. And with this news, I doubt Cleveland fans are actually looking at them being a playoff team this year. So the best case scenario would be Watson comes back the final 6 games of the year, finds a rhythm, and then they can build off of that going into next year. But like I said, the 11 games suspension is definitely much better than 6. But I had talked myself into it being the full season just because, you know, it made more sense than the 6, of course. So 11, I'm okay with. And like I said, if they'd stuck with the 6, I think that would have spelled major issues at, you know, not only the home stadium for Cleveland, but when they went on the road, fully expected to see visiting fans, you know, really give it to Deshaun Watson for all this. And we'll have to see over the 11-game suspension, can Watson stay, you know, out of the news and get it back to how it was beginning of his career, where the focus is on him on the field and no more issues with masseuses. Because I mean, him being back in a, you know, NFL facility, I'm sure there's going to be female employees there that aren't going to feel comfortable being around him. Now, right or wrong, it's justifiable. So there's going to be a lot of room for Watson to try to mend and, you know, fix his reputation. Because right now, hearing Goodell say predatory behavior, that's a strong statement to make about somebody. And when you're dealing with a league, like I said, where a lot of these teams are becoming more and more progressive, bringing in more women employees around the team, and you have a guy like Watson with the stuff he was alleged against him, that could create a tough work environment. So, like I said, hopefully this ends that story with Deshaun Watson. We don't have to hear any more about it. Hopefully he's learned something from this, because like I said, from the narrative that was when you heard Deshaun Watson before, it was always, you know, great player, great ambassador to the league, and all the positives you would like. But then once this story hit, I mean, he was seen in a completely different light. He didn't really talk much throughout all this. He talked the other day after the suspension was, you know, agreed upon with 11 games. Didn't really come across as the most remorseful in all that. But hopefully there'll be other opportunities for him to kind of, you know, speak in such a way where he can get some fans he may have lost back on his side. But that's going to be completely up to him and his, you know, PR people and all that, the Cleveland Browns as well. But that's definitely going to be a story that I will be monitoring throughout this season. But thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I will have some more, like I said, season preview episodes coming. I believe over the weekend you should get a couple of episodes where I'm going to look at the quarterback situations for each team in the NFL. Let you know which ones are strong, which ones are weak, and plus some other things coming down the line. But stay tuned for that, definitely. So if you like this episode, you know what you need to do. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And obviously let me know what you think about the whole Deshaun Watson case. You think he got enough games? Should have been more? And would you have wanted him on your team if you're not a Browns fan? let me know that. Comment section, or go over to Twitter. Follow me at Chompin' Podcast, and let me know your thoughts there. So, as I say at the end of every episode, be safe. God bless. I'll catch you in the next episode. All right, I'm out. Have a good one.